free to look at that and share that. There are only 60 copies, and so we're hoping that you guys can pass it around. And we're also sharing surveys and with pens, and we also have an online survey. Please fill those out. We want to know what your experience was, what things you like, what things you'd like to see next time, because inshallah there will be a next time. If you'd like to join the care newsletter to know when there are events like this going on, you can check online and sign up. And then, yeah, so pretty soon we're going to be getting into the panels, and then afterwards we'll have a short Q&A, followed by an open forum. And so, you know, that was a really heavy film that we saw. That was, you know, the real experiences of people. Somebody's now serving time for entrapment. And this happened all the way in Philly, if I remember correctly. And then informants and many others have, you know, entrapped many people. And this is a tactic that the FBI uses. And it's also been used here in Minneapolis with the case of our brothers who were locked up on these conspiracy charges. And so today we have an amazing panel of organizers and family members and people who are very, very familiar with this experience of surveillance and entrapment and what that does to our community. And we also have Filson and Riot, our wonderful MC for the night. One of our many mottos is to make the comfortable uncomfortable and the uncomfortable comfortable. She's a proud member of the Frogtown neighborhood. She is an amazing organizer who believes in the beauty of our collective voice and power. And she focuses her energy on working with our community, youth, and anything justice-related, healing, and art. You can always find her dreaming and scheming throughout the Twin Cities with loved ones. So a round of applause to
Assalamu alaikum, everybody. Hope you guys are doing well. Thank you for joining us. And if anybody is missing a cell phone, come find me. You have to describe it. I can't just give it to you. But thank you for spending your night with us, watching a movie, and organizing with us. I know a lot of us, it's cold, you guys could be home, you could be doing other things, but thank you for coming out. And what we've seen, entrapment, you know, is just another face of racism. Imagine if this was, you know, young white boys just living their life like this would not be tolerated in America. So it's good to kind of call it what it is and organize around that. So before we get any further, I kind of just want to give each panelist 15 minutes to kind of talk about what they thought about the movie and just the past that they've had organizing with this. So the first person we have up is Matthew.
Okay, is this on? Is it on? Close it, close it. Oh my. I have to hold it here?
You're not loud enough, you're good.
They want me to use it for filming.
Can you switch? Oh, okay, there we go. All right, I'll hold it. Okay, well, thank you to Ayan and Rohan and others for this invitation of being here. Welcome. I want to start by, maybe can you turn that off? Yeah, better? Yes, okay. So I want to start by thanking the organizers for this invitation. And I want to begin by recognizing that there are countless Black Muslim people who are not able to speak about the violence of the war on terrorism in their lives because they have been killed, deported, or incarcerated. Over the last 15 years as an instructor at Minneapolis College, I've heard hundreds of stories of young Somali people tell me details about about FBI bullying, entrapment, and targeting of them and their families. And the primary reason that many are not able to speak is because they are afraid of being targeted, deported, imprisoned, or killed. The only reason why I am able to speak about these things to you tonight is because I am a white, privileged male, and I don't experience directly that kind of intimidation by the FBI. I've known Guled Omar since 2013 when he came to the college and I was the advisor for the Muslim Student Association. Over these years, we've become very close friends. And what I'm going to tell you tonight, the resources for this comes directly from Guled, from his case. I was in the court. He has given me private court documents to look through. The information that I have and I'll be sharing comes from him, close friends of his who were there. It does not come from the media or my personal experience. My goal tonight is one thing, and that is at the end of this time, that I've been able to create a little bit of space in the critique of the war on terror and talking about his case, so that you all can hear Guled Omar, his friends, and his family better. Because he is speaking and writing today from Leavenworth Prison, serving 35 years in prison, for having never left Hennepin County, never committed any violence, never touched a weapon, never had any intent on killing anyone. And he is in 35 years in Leavenworth Prison today. My goal is to create some space so that you can hear his voice clearly, not as an alienated young man, not as an extremist, not as a violent terrorist, but you can hear him as a human being, his love, his faith, and his empathy. So I hope at the end of my talk, you say, I want to hear Guled more. I want to sign up for his newsletter. I want to hear from his voice, his family, and his community. So that's my goal. Now I want to do two things. The first thing is just talk about a little bit of the history of counterterrorism. And then I'm going to talk about details of Guled Omar's case and the role of the informant in his case that parallels some of what you saw in this film. Regardless of what you read or think, counterterrorism, the war on terrorism and counterterrorism, is a colonial project of controlling populations. Counterterrorism is not about security. It's not about keeping people safe. It's not about stopping violence. Counterterrorism is not about extremist ideologies. It's not about religious extremism or radicalization. It's not about a balance between civil liberties and the security of people. It's not about that. Counterterrorism is a creation of colonial power and control on populations. Largely, we're talking about indigenous, enslaved, African, Asian, and indigenous Native communities. That's what counterterrorism is. So I want to show you that briefly, hit the highlights, and then talk about Guled's case. If any of you know about colonialism, you know that the colonial state created the idea that it is the sole source of violence and terror on people. It is a monopoly of violence. But here's the trick. When the colonial states do this, when they commit state terror, they don't call it terror. Here's the trick. They call other groups, indigenous populations or resistance groups, they call them terrorists. And so then what the state is doing is counterterrorism. In other words, the state's using terrorism to fight terrorist groups. That's the origin of counterterrorism. describing groups as terrorists, inhumane, barbaric, savage, etc., and then justifying its own terror as counterterrorism. We just need to do terror to stop terrorists. You can see this in British history, British colonialism, especially with the Mau Mau movement in the revolution in 1952 in Kenya. Against Palestinian groups, you are terrorists. Against Malay people in Asia, you are terrorists. And of course, against terrorist groups, so-called terrorist groups in this country. The big example of that is the 1967 Terrorism Act in South Africa, the racist state calling Nelson Mandela and the ANC and the black conscience groups terrorist groups to justify their imprisonment. In 1972, the first international, at the United Nations, the first international conversation to try to define international terrorism took place, 1972. The United States, South Africa, and the State of Israel wanted to argue, we want to label groups around the world as terrorists. Every other country and group said no. We are not going to label groups as terrorists. Colonial states, you are the terrorist groups. One of the primary countries in that was Somalia. Somalia was on the Security Council in 1972 and opposed this idea of labeling groups as terrorist groups. The United States, Israel, South Africa did not listen to the rest of the world, and they began characterizing groups, the Black Panther group, other groups around the world as terrorist groups. 1974, the United States holds its first congressional hearing on terrorism, starting to target and identify groups as terrorist groups. 1979, the Jerusalem Conference, led by Benjamin Netanyahu, primarily had the United States, Israel, and Western allies say terrorist groups around the world are barbaric, uncivilized, and we need to continue and ramp up our counterterrorism to stop these groups. Reagan picked this up, and in the 1980s, we began to have academic conferences and writings and psychologists talking about radicalization in terrorist groups. Focusing now on Somalia and the Somali community, 1991, the Somali Civil War. The United States invades and begins and tries to do nation building. Right? 1992, 1993, 1994, 1995. During that time, in 1994, the Violent Crime Act was passed, the worst act for mass incarceration in U.S. history. In that act, the laws were created that ended up putting Guled Omar and his friends in prison. Conspiracy to materially support a terrorist organization, that discourse, those laws, 1994, the same laws used to perpetuate mass incarceration in this country. 1998, U.S. embassies are bombed in Nairobi and Dar es Salaam, and the Joint Counterterrorism Task Force is started in Minneapolis. Begins in 1998 is the beginning of counterterrorism against the Somali community here. After 9/11, two things happened. The United States invaded Somalia, 2002, and began a shadow war, paying warlords to do counterterrorism work, informants, CIA, etc. There's a joint terrorism in Somalia. Also, a myth was created. Totally disproved now. Here's the myth. Al-Qaeda is based in Somalia. It's been totally disproven by every study. And yet this myth grew. Somalia and Somali people, homegrown terrorism there. These are all attempts of the United States to gain economic and military control in the Middle East. 2006, the Council of Islamic Courts are formed. the United States says you're a terrorist group, pushes Ethiopia to invade. Al-Shabaab is formed, the United States says terrorist group. And then President Obama was elected. And he started what he wanted to call a kind of ideological war. We're not just going after the bad guys, we're fighting the ideology of radical extremism. And this now creates a mechanism that every young person who articulates a Muslim faith is now suspect. 2009, we had the first counterterrorism psychological profiling of the Somali community done by scholars from the University of Minnesota and elsewhere, looking for and talking about push-pull factors of radicalized youth. 2009. These continue every year. You get these psychological reports. Most of these are done by people who have been here for a couple days, interviewed a handful of people, and went home and talked about radicalization in the Somali community here. Most of you probably have experienced CBE work. Now on to Goulet's case, and to finish up. In 2011, the Arab Spring happened. And there were groups in Syria and Iraq that started fighting for freedom. Sunni populations in Iraq fighting against the US-backed Nouri al-Maliki, who's a brutal person, and people in Syria. Here in Minneapolis, 3 young men decided to go to Syria to help people who are victims of Bashar al-Assad. One of their relatives, who would become the informant in Goulet's case, was communicating with his cousins in Syria, who were telling him, look, we're working, we're helping people, this is good. In 2014, March, April, this is when the so-called conspiracy began between Goulet Omar and his friends. Goulet and his friends talked in private about wanting to have feeling empathy and wanting to help victims of Bashar al-Assad in Syria. They talked in private about wanting to help. In May, another young man left to help in Syria. Over the next year, Goulet and his friend talked a few times in private, never left, never picked up a weapon, never strategized to kill anybody. And in December of 2014, the FBI approached that young man, who would be an informant, and began paying him to try and encourage Goulet to join ISIS. Despite the fact that Goulet and a number of the young men had no interest, the informant encouraged Goulet to go, said this is the will of God for us to go, being instructed now by the FBI. The FBI and the informant strategized a way for the young men to get out. The informant told the young men that on April 20th, the FBI will arrest them all. But there's a way out. Drive to San Diego, sell your car, and get out of the country. So much of the plan, the encouragement, is coming from that informant. On April 19th, the day before, many of them were arrested. Goulet was arrested. He was put in solitary confinement for 4.5 months. And he was overcharged, meaning that they increased his charge from conspiracy to materially support a terrorist organization to conspiracy to murder abroad, which is a life sentence. Wiley believed that he would get justice if he went to trial. Unfortunately, at the trial, amongst 12 white jurors, who were shown pictures of ISIS as a violent organization beheading people, were told by the informant and other young men who were getting advantages from the state, from the government, that Guled is the emir. He's the leader. In fact, the informant is the first one to say that, to an FBI agent, that Guled Omar is essentially and irredeemably a terrorist. The first person to say that was the informant. He was found guilty by a jury of 12 people who knew nothing about Islam, its culture, this community. And at his sentence, in November of 2016, Riot talked to the judge about the work that he's done, his school, his empathy, his love, his commitment to the community. And the judge's response is, Guled, I don't believe you. You are irredeemable. And because of your charisma, you are going away for a long, long time. And he's sentenced him to 35 years in prison and life probation, where he serves at Leavenworth Prison today. He lost his appeal this last summer to the 8th Circuit, and he is in prison. I know I'm out of time. He is in prison now in Leavenworth. He's writing his newsletter. He's taking college classes through Ohio University. He's organizing study groups, prayer groups, supporting his others in prison. And the most important thing that he says, and he's told me, is that he believes that God has given him this trial so that he can be used as an instrument to stop the mass incarceration system and the war on terror so that nobody else can suffer the fate that he has. All he wants to do is be heard. By you, by us, by the world. That is what he wants. So please, after all of this, hear, really hear and support Guled, his family, and these young men. Because if we continue to think about terrorism as just going after bad people, bad Muslims, bad, right, etc., we won't hear him and his story. We have to deconstruct what that terrorism is to create room for you and me and all of us to hear from Guled as a human being, as a person committed to justice and faith and empathy and peace for everybody in his community and the world. Thank you.
I won't take too long. You know, sometimes it is really overwhelming, you know, when you, as Matthew was saying, you know, going into some of the details of the case and like specifically Will was going through, you know, it's burdensome. I think and one of the biggest reasons why it's such a burden on the community and the people who are directly impacted is because, you know, you feel helpless. You know what I mean? You feel hopeless because you're at the end of the day you're up against one of the most powerful, you know, empires that exist, and they have all of the resources and power at their disposal to create these stories and to make, you know, to convince people that we're dealing with monsters. You know, in reality, when you give people that much time, you literally rob them their humanity. That's why men, you know, that's why men in that court and that judge can feel, you know, need to give somebody 35 years. Like Matthew was saying, that never left him in county. He was probably never in front of a county judge, forget a federal judge. As for somebody to feel that, that it was somehow, you were securing the nation and that you were defending the liberty of this country and you were protecting the people by getting rid of people, by putting them in some box, for the rest of their lives, really. And so, that really does, a lot emotionally, obviously for people who are directly impacted. And it's a tragedy because, we're dealing with a system that's supported and protected by, namely, the media. The reason why, those young men and other people who throughout this country go nameless is because you have the media that consistently and constantly vilifies people that don't have any real power to protect themselves. You know what I mean? That's why in that movie, when that guy was arrested, that little headline of the anti-American activities, they literally set the guy up. It was almost like the FBI wrote a whole press release and said, hey, and gave it to the media and said, we got somebody. They got rid of the guy over some picture, on his Facebook. That's how they got rid of him. And their own informant was telling them, you're chasing a ghost. There's nothing there. And that's what you see in this case and a lot of cases in this country. And again, the biggest reason why that's allowed to happen is because they control the way that these stories are communicated to us and the way that these narratives are built to destroy communities. Another example I can use is what's going on in some of these poor cities. For example, Flint, Chicago, where people are being, where they're the victims of gun violence. But in reality, why that happens is because of the unemployment rate. They just shut down schools. But you don't hear none of that. You hear people killing each other. And now you're painting this picture of horrible monsters. And when they get rid of these people, you're talking about 18, 19-year-old young black men in this country doing 30, 40 years over gun charges or something that has to do with violence. A lot of that has to do with the way they build up these stories within the media. You know what I mean? You talk about, and even locally, none of the media that covered the specific case ever gave it any real chance to the community. You know what I mean? And if they weren't interviewing us, it was within the colonial framework of again making the victims look like the absolute monsters. You know what I mean? It wasn't about Goulet or any of these boys thinking like, hey, there's a loss of life over there. Let me help out. It wasn't that. It was ISIS, 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 ISIS. And so when you paint that picture, it's easy for 12 jurors, especially if they're white, to say, oh man, 35 years, man, they could, they would have gave him life probably. You know what I mean? And again, it's because of the way, these stories and these images reach us. The first, and I'll try to end it with this, the first image that came out after he was arrested on the Star Tribune on Sunday during the football season, where everybody and their mother, especially if you white and you got money, was grabbing those newspapers off the racks. You had a picture on the front page of somebody with I want to say it was a rocket launcher. You know what I mean? And I think, if I can remember the headline, it was something about jihad to homeland or something like that, or homeland to jihad or something. And again, that's calculated. It's not that they're reporting on facts and they want to tell a story. They're telling a specific story. You know what I mean? And I think once people understand that if we don't keep, this alive, where we're able to tell these stories, they'll keep running away with these images of painting people who don't have any real power to protect themselves as monsters, and they can do what the hell they want. They can come in the middle of the night, raid your house, put M16s to your head, drag you out, and the newspaper will have some shit about, it was some anti-American, criminal activity that was taking place. You know what I mean? But rather than seeing that they paid a human being to infiltrate a community, to harass, and to destroy families, and to put somebody in a box. you know what I mean, for that many years, and to expose them to a federal prison industrial system that preys on people, you know what I mean, that destroys the ability for people to fight back, you know what I mean, and I think the best way we can overcome some of these issues is by keeping their stories alive. You have to be able to speak about it. And to be honest with you, you know, some of us do put ourselves in a very risky situation by speaking about it. But at the end of the day, I think, you know, us being able to sacrifice that little bit of insecurity goes a long way, you know, in being able to speak for people who can't speak for themselves. Because there's so much that Buddha can say from inside that box, or Muhammad or Rahman can say from inside those walls. It has to be us who witness this constant railroad of communities and individuals within these communities to paint them as barbaric, you know what I mean, just inhumane people. It's up to us to check, you know what I mean, and to be able to dig deep and not allow, especially the media, to be at the forefront of telling these stories. Because when they do, this is what happens. And I know for a fact, one of the biggest reasons why counterterrorism and these laws and this empire's ability to legally get rid of people is because of the media. It's literally a conspiracy where you have all these institutions in uniform when it comes to these issues. There's nobody else that's willing to you're not going to see this on CBS or PBS. This was an independent film that was created to give people the idea, or to give them, you know, this ability to tell this story. CNN ain't gonna put this up, or all these so-called liberal media that have all the means to tell this type of story. They could have done a whole story on the informant that was part of destroying this community. There's stories there, but you're not gonna find no one from the media, the so-called people who represent, who look like us, who work within these media entities, whether they're black or Asian. You're just a face within these institutions. You don't have no ability to tell stories like this unless you are independent and you're able to tell it in a way where it's authentic as hell, and you're able to have people at least thinking differently about what's taking place. And I hope, you know, once we leave this place, people are able to keep these stories alive in their own unique way. You know what I mean? Whether you're part of a brotherhood or sisterhood, whether you go to these institutions, academic institutions, you have to be able to keep these stories alive. And you know, and again, you know, I couldn't say that there was some sort of time period where, you know, if we do this, there's a result. I can't say that. Nobody can say that. But what we can do is use whatever means that we have to keep these stories alive. Thank you.
And I'm Kadra. I'll be translating from Maya. My name's Ayan Muhammad Farah.
waxaan dhalay Maxamed Cabdixamiid Faarax iyo Cadnaan Maxamed Faarax.
And I am. Can you hear me? Oh, perfect. And I am the mother of Adnan Farah and then Muhammad Farah.
waxaan rabaa inaan caawan ii sheego dadka martida aqoonoo joogta inay aada u mahadsan yihiin.
I want to tell you tonight, I want to thank the guests that came, and I want to thank you.
Programkan dadka soo aasaasana malaya waa mahadsantihiin.
And the people who organized this event.
Maxamed iyo Cadnaan waxaa la xiray 2015kii.
Muhammad and Adnan were arrested and locked up in 2015.
Maxamed waxaa siiyey 30 sano.
Muhammad got 30 years.
Cadnaan waxaa siiyey 10 sano.
And Adnan got 10 years.
Carruur aan waddankan ku dhalay waaye, waddankaana ku dhashay America.
And these kids were born in this country.
Ilaa haddana waxay u xiran yihiin ma aqaano.
And to this day, I have no idea why they're locked up.
And we
can't talk about our rights. And we can't talk about our children's rights.
And
tonight I want to tell you to wake up and stand up for these children and their rights. I will never sleep from their rights.
idinka waa dareemi kartiin de hooyo intaas safar soo maraysa oo intaasoo dhibaataa soo marto caruurle waxay xiriirka waa dareemi kartiin de.
And you all understand the pain a mother will go through when both of her children were locked up and the pain that comes from that.
caruurtayda keliyana maana waxay dhibaatada ku dhacday ilmaha Soomaali badan ay haysataa dhibaatada.
This problem is not something that only impacts my kids, it's something that impacts all of Somali children.
marka wax kale aan sheega ma aqaano laakiin insha Allah xaqooda weliba Ilaahay soo saari doonaan.
I don't know what else to tell you, but that I am hopeful that Allah will give them justice one day.
So just a reminder, just to myself and to everybody, that if we look at the bigger picture, the first group that would technically be considered a terrorist is the KKK. But the fact that that organization is run by white men who fully acknowledge the hurt that they're causing, the destruction that they're bringing to people, and without any harm done to them. And the fact that people are so okay with the fact that they're causing this harm solely because of it's coming from white people is all wrapped in white supremacy and racism. The fact that white people are the default of humanity and everybody else is labeled a terrorist or barbaric or savage, and we always have to fight for our humanity, is the stem of where this problem comes from. So I don't want to forget that. So I keep outlining that. Yes, I totally agree. And every time that I'm hoping, hopefully in our future, in the near future, every time a school shooting or any shooting comes up, I'm hoping the word terrorist would be in the headline, other than a shooter, an identified shooter. Hopefully we can all come to that agreement that terrorist doesn't mean that you're Muslim, or it doesn't mean that you're a person of color. That it comes in all forms and shapes and sizes, especially for white supremacy. That's my point. So now we would like to kind of open up for questions from the audience. So if you guys have any questions, please. Oh, sorry, we have one more speaker.
I'm sending you my greetings, all of the guests, all of the participants, and I want to thank you. And today I'm speaking on behalf of my son, Khaled Omar. And I want to tell everyone that my son is locked up in an unjust process, or unjustly. Someone who has never killed, never sold, never destroyed anything, that has been locked up for 35 years is something I've never heard of. I've been in Minnesota for 20 years, and all of the things that I've been hearing is something that I've never experienced or witnessed. And this whole terrorism story narrative is something that I hate more than you all and more than anyone. There are a lot of people in this country and in the city, in this state, that cause a lot of violence, and nobody comes after them, but everyone comes after these little kids and their mothers. And whatever everyone's talking about, which is terrorism, is something that we don't want, is something that we don't want to be part of in any way. The things that they're charging my kids with is something that we haven't heard of, as in like we have never participated in. It's not something that, you know, that's obviously like taught in their homes. It's something that's new. Isn't it unjust that I came to this country seeking safety and asylum as a refugee, and that my children are locked up for something that I have never even heard of? It is a huge injustice that we are experiencing in this country. Children that were born in this country that are being charged unjustly. It's understandable for someone who has killed, who has stole, who has destroyed something to be locked up for something like that. But for a child who has never done anything, it's unspeakable. It's almost like we have been attacked, destroyed our homes, we have been kicked out of our homes, we have nowhere to go. It is unjust for us to experience something like that, something that painful, when we haven't killed, when we haven't stole, when we have never done anything to harm anyone. So please be aware and understand how unjust this is. And for anyone that thinks our kids have done something, they have not. And my children are not terrorists. And some people, it was a mission, an entrapment mission. And those people should have been the one that were come after. not our innocent children who we have been raising and working so hard to raise. Does the United States only come after those people who are defenseless and not the ones who do things that are wrong? And I want to reassure you again that we are people that are innocent. We are refugees. Our children are innocent, and we have not done anything. And this is a huge problem for us. And again, our children are innocent. We have not done anything to harm anyone, and this, what we're experiencing, is a huge injustice. Please be aware of that. The question I'm asking is, a child that has been born here, that has never even gone to the airport, what have they done in like a foreign country? That is nothing. Someone stole our children. And we are being systemically bullied. We don't know where to go. We can't be with our children. And I don't have power, and I don't have... So just know that I am a mother who's raising her children. I work for my children. I don't have a way to reach my son, and he's really, really far away, and he's locked up for 35 years. And again, I want to thank you so much. And I'm sending you my greetings.
We're going to have a question portion. It's going to be for 15 minutes. And I just want to kind of give you the layout of it. If you do have a question, please get your question right away. And if you do have a comment or a suggestion, kind of hold that off because we're going to have a suggestion portion. But if you do have a question, please be aware that this conversation, this gathering is being live streamed on Facebook. So if you don't want your voice or whatever you want to be broadcasted, just make a note of that. And then we have a runner who's going to be running around with a mic, and Hannah is our runner. So if you have any questions, please raise your hand and he'll come right to you.
And thank you all for joining. It's Nico from Riot. We're here live in Minneapolis. It's a question and answer panel discussion. If you can't hear the questions, I'll try to repeat them.
This is regarding the movie. Is there any digital copies out there from a website that I can obtain the movie regarding the movie?
What was the name of the judge and the legal counsel for the defense? Were they public defenders, or how was that set up?
judge's name was Michael J. Davis. And ironically, Michael J. Davis does a lot of so-called civil rights work in, I believe, North Minneapolis.
So the trial judge was Judge Michael Davis. Started out as a public defender, started out as seen as a civil rights leader within the African American community, at least the institutional part of it. I was one of the lawyers for the 3 young men who went to trial, or were forced to go to trial. When I say went to trial, it sounds like they chose to go to trial. They were forced to go to trial by the government. But we were vastly overmatched. I mean, throughout the trial, the number of attorneys, the number of support staff, the number of investigators that the government had was the resources. They were just totally and entirely out of whack. And I think the thing to say about Judge Davis, I mean, I think I don't think he purposely set out to give people an unfair trial. But there's an ideological and a structural problem. His comment when Adiris Akwesami, one of the individuals who ended up cooperating against 3 people who went to trial, when Akwesami pled guilty and talked about that originally their goal was to go to Syria to help people, Judge Davis's response to him was, "Why didn't you join the U.S. Army?" And I mean, when you think about, I just don't know where to start to attack and deconstruct that statement. But it comes from someone who believes so deeply in the colonial project and the imperial project of projecting force and violence around the world to maintain order that the savages are disrupting. And so why didn't you join the U.S. Army? I think that really gets at the heart of what was structurally wrong with this entire process. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Miriam. I'm a second-year master's human rights student, and I was actually specializing in international security and counterterrorism. And until this moment, I had no idea what I was going to do with my life. But sitting here and watching mothers and the film has clearly opened my mind to knowing exactly what I want to do. And I want to do research to find out exactly what kind of laws are put in place. And seeing what rather hearing what I've heard, it sounds like there's a lot of human rights violations that are taking place within prison systems. I don't understand how legally you can hold a person who's not yet been charged with a crime 4.5 months of solitary confinement. Did you guys try to fight that? And how do you do a habeas corpus to at least lessen the amount of time he spends in jail by incorporating the time he spent in confinement?
I don't know answers.
I don't want to try to give any of the legal answers on that. I do want to say, good luck, right? Like, do it. We need people like you to challenge these laws and structures that exist. So I wish you the best. I will. I will just make one comment about the structure of colonialism, is that when a group or a person is declared a terrorist, oftentimes the argument is human rights violations don't apply, right? So you're now outside of what is sometimes talked about as human rights. And when you ask, why are we torturing these individuals? Why are you doing this? Always the response is, these are security purposes. We have to do this to keep everybody safe. And when people believe that, then you just say, okay, then do it. So that's why it is that colonial project where if you are the barbarian, if you are the terrorist, if you are the typical rules, morality, and ethics that we all would say apply to everybody under all circumstances often gets tossed out. Now everything is justified. Turn the other cheek. We have to do this. Better that you not know what's going on behind the prisons. Just leave it to us. We're the gatekeepers of your security and your safety. And when we say, yes, we need you to do that, then we become, sadly, silent and sometimes complicit in that. So that's all I can say to that, is that absolutely there's human rights violations, but under the Colonial Project of Counterterrorism, the state does terrorism against who it deems to be Thank you.
We have a question right here.
Okay, I have a question actually. First one being, I don't understand how this sting operation is not entrapment. Just because it seemed like the FBI actually hired someone to go in and you know, treat these young impressionable kids. I mean, they were kids are like 18, 19 years old, so that is something that's beyond me. And the second thing is how, I mean, 35 years seems excessive. I mean, is there not any type of guidelines for sentencing, you know, especially young kids who may not necessarily have known or understood what they have done? And, you know, is it possible that this was more or less set an example for others who may be getting along these kind of things? And actually, another thing. They actually, the funny thing is, I actually got approached to be one of the informants. When I was going to the airport, I got pulled aside. I was coming from Saudi Arabia, they asked me questions, and I answered and everything, and you know, they essentially said, hey, you know, kind of like, you know, how articulate you are and whatnot, and you would be a good person to kind of be in the community, and you know, get us some information. And so, and this was back in like maybe 2015, 2016, and so, you know, it just seems like there's a, you know, full effort by the FBI to kind of go after the community and send in people to kind of attract more people. And, you know, is there something that he does to kind of stop that?
Man, that was really brave of you to even bring that up, to be honest with you. And I think it takes that being able to, because I think, you know, by you speaking on it, you're protecting others. You know, because there's so many people that go through that same exact situation where they think me being quiet and not being seen as, oh, you were approached, you know, and sort of not being the focus and attention of the community. You don't want to be all out there. And I think it takes, you know, what you just did and other people being able to come out and really get those stories out, because that's a powerful story. You know what I mean? And what that does, it honestly empowers others to be able to speak up, because there's so many people that I know personally that have told me privately about them being in a similar situation, not saying, hey, look, man, I don't want to tell the story. Man, I am scared, but I won't speak on it. You know, and I think the best way to combat that is being able to speak about it. If you're approached at home, if you're approached at the airport, at your job, and they do this at the mosque, you know, and so I think being able to literally give it life, and that's how you protect the community. You know, because I think once someone is isolated like that, where you keep it yourself, they don't stop. They'll keep coming after you. And you know, and sometimes people buckle under that pressure, and that's where you have stories like this, where you become a full-blown informant, and now everybody's really in danger, you know. And I think on the conspiracy part and how excessive some of these sentences are, again, it's just how much power is given to the prosecutor. You know what I mean? And I think, and we have a lawyer in the building that could probably speak on it, but you're literally at the mercy of the court, especially the prosecutor, and especially when you're charged with something like a RICO offense or even a conspiracy where they can just, extend the amount of years you would have gotten. You know what I mean? And I think that they do it by points, especially if it's something as politically, where you can politically exaggerate the issue. And now it's like, oh, terrorism, you would have probably got 10 years probably, they're giving you 35. And so I think, again, where people can direct some energy is to probably reforming some of these conspiracy laws, where it gives such broad powers to the prosecutor's office, and the reason why they have a high number of people who either plead out, or if you take them to trial, it's pretty much 100%, you know what I mean, a ruling of guilty. You really don't stand a chance. You know what I mean? And again, that comes from how much resources and how much power the state is given to get rid of people. Like, you're literally at their mercy. And I think the best way to do that is to speak on the fact that, it is an injustice within this criminal justice system. And that's something that these so-called liberals and this movement of mass incarceration and reforming, they're leaving out this at the end of the day. A lot of people, I think people have been following some of the mass incarceration hoopla about, reforming the laws and getting non-violent offenders out of prison. It leaves out people who've been caught in terrorist-related cases. There's really no voice given to the fact that you got people like Wiley and Muhammad and Abdurrahman sitting in jail for non-violent offenses for 35 years. You know what I mean? And again, and I think it's, the way the liberal media has been able to co-opt this effort to reform these laws, again, strategically, they were able to keep, these terrorism-related stories out there. You don't hear none of that. They bring up, mass incarceration, it's about the war on drugs. It's not about the war on terrorism. And I think that's something that they're able to, and ironically, I want to end with this. Michael J. Davis, 2 weeks before he sentenced those boys, was at, and me and Nemo and some other people were there. He spoke at an event where they showed the documentary, the 13th, about, again, about reforming the criminal justice system. He was literally there talking about how excessive these laws and these people were being, being pushed to federal prison. And in 2 weeks, he was about to do the same thing to three young men. You know what I mean? And so I think a lot of our energy has to be concentrated on the fact that these laws are really a human rights violation. Where it gives the state so much power that, they can get rid of you easy. So.
I'm going to just add one thing on the question of the informants. I am looking at and reading through an FBI manual of exactly psychologically how to, as it says, manipulate informants to getting them to do what they don't want to do. And they list psychological traits and characteristics, how to leverage them, how to use deception, flattery, empathy, and it goes through this 11-page document, FBI document. This was leaked more recently. But there are FBI training manuals of how to manipulate vulnerable people to become informants. The informant in Goulet's case had just found out 4 of his closest friends and family were killed. He was absolutely depressed. He was absolutely in the most vulnerable situation in December of 2014 when the FBI approached him and says, "We need you. Will you help us? We're not going to do anything wrong to your friends. Just help us." The most vulnerable point imaginable. And so that's what I'm saying, there are manuals. It's certainly unethical, but there's a legality to manipulating informants to get them to do what they don't want to do. And the result is these young men. And I can give you these documents. We have them, they're publicly accessible now because people leak them. Goulet was asked to be an informant. When they broke into his house, pinned him against the wall, here's your one chance. will give you fame and fortune, join us. Now, like you, who were asked, don't become an informant. Or not. United States, no. I believe that's wrong. The consequence, 35 years.
Yeah, I think that in Wiley's case, he actually didn't have a choice. The reason being, they have had this other case in this where they essentially said, we'll take you to jail or you can come back. Where in my case, they were more or less like, hey, we want you to, help the community, and this is something that they want to tell you. They asked me specifically about the case. First of all, they asked me silly questions like why you were there, what are you doing here? But then they asked me one of them, asked me, what do you think about the Wiley's case? And I said it's unfortunate, that people have given opportunities in this country, end up, kind of trying to get involved in terrorist activities, and that kind of elaborated a little more on that. And then they took that statement and they're like, well, do you want to help, us kind of you want to help us, fight that, or kind of help us, turn around other youth, because there's, other fellas that are going on, and, we need, young people to go on to communities and really make a difference. And so he gave me his card. This is, I don't know, he's CSA, but I guess he was FBI. And I was going to get involved in that, so.
Good job. Good job. You made the right decision. You made the right decision.
So I just want to say this, just so you guys know, that's still going on. So there's still trying to get people to become informed.
Yeah.
So this.
Yeah, I think that's one of the biggest things. The fact that the FBI, the systems, the way to get away with these things, because we don't talk about them. We keep. Okay, and after program CVE
I heard about that actually just recently, like 2018. I wasn't part of this.
No, program CVE. Where do we at?
I heard about it in 2018.
Oh, 2018?
Around the
Okay. waxaan maadayna kaaga sheekay programka CVE la yiraahdo waqtiga la kala Minnesota waxa uu 2014 after 2014 ilaa 2015 intii ilmaha la xiraayeen waxyaalaha aad u fara badan ilaa hadda reedna uu shaqeynaa sawaa xiray soo fahmay marka anaan aan ka soo saro bixis CVE waa loo gooyano marka taabay marka 2015 fiiri waxa ilmaha oo waxyaalaha la arki doonto oo
I just wanted to, ask Abdurrahman if he understood the CVE project, which is the Countering Violence Extremism program that was, brought to Minneapolis in 2014, and it's still going on. It has been renamed and rebranded. I think the name is like the Task Force or Building Community Resilience. Building Community Resilience, and the people that are in it are called the Task Force. And so, I guess that has been part of the entrapment process as well. And that was not just targeted to the boys, it was targeted to all Somali youth.
And program loogu talagalay dadka muslimiinta oo Minnesota joogto saddex magaalooyin waaweyn ah programkan CVE-ga Minnesota iyo Boston iyo Los Angeles. So Minnesota allaah waxaa joogo community oo Soomaali ah oo immigrant oo cusub imaaday dadka ugu horeeya imaadana waxay u badan yihiin 1992 marka maadaama ilmo aad u fara badan ay joogaan oo muslimiin oo madow ah that's why ay inta u qaateen programka midka kale uu rabaa inuu isku diro ujeedada community-ga
waxyaalahaas oo dhan laga shaqeynayay marka saas markeena u socodnaa rabaa.
And everyone, I want you to understand, I'm just interpreting for other people who are not understanding, I'm sure you can understand what she's saying, but that the CBE is a program that is a surveillance and an entrapment program that is targeted towards the Somali community and Somali youth in Minneapolis, in Minnesota. There's a lot of 2 other cities, Los Angeles and Massachusetts, right? Boston. And it is part of, the reason it's happening in Minnesota, one of the reasons is because there is a huge Somali community here, and we're very vulnerable for this program, and what the FBI, the project that they have going on.
Programka waxaa aad u fara badan aan lagu bixiyay ilaa ilmaha inta la xirxiray ilma aad u fara badan aan rabay in la xiro marka wuxuu istaagaa online markii 2000 Trump uu soo qoray la joojiyay dadka ugu lacagta badnaa qaateen waxay ka ahaayeen kuwa ka joog ugu qoreen waxay celiyeen $600,000 celiyeen markuu Trump soo qoray madaxweynaha madaxda hore programkan waxaa la rabay allaana adiga maxay haysteen $600,000 carruur ay haysan musawirayaashooda magacyaashooda waxay carruurta suumiyaan dugsiyaashay tegi jireen masaajidaday tegi jireen everywhere tegi jireen ka joog oo la dhahaayeen waxay aad u rabeen u badee dhigi jireen carruurtaan caawinaa saasay waxay ku qaadan jireen lacagta grantka marka masaajida aad u fara badan oo masaajidka Abubakar ka koob yahay wuu ku jiray carruurteena maalintii la xirxiraayay ilaa iyo maalintii la siiyey satiriska Abubakar wuu ogaa iyo alaana masaajidka kale ma fahatay.
She said that there's a lot of money was put into this program, and some of the money was actually dispersed in different Somali organizations, Kajug being one of them. And Kajug had got the money and then returned it after it was rebranded under Trump, and nobody knows what it's going to look like or it's going to look like under Trump. It was this bad under Obama, so I guess you can imagine where it's going to go. They had this program was like, the program that wanted to recruit at least mosques, schools, and community organizations to create a system of surveillance and basically watching Somali youth and then putting them through the system like this.
And just to support what Mama Yan is saying, during the height of the CBE initiative, especially at Al Mosque, which is in South Minneapolis, in the West Bank neighborhood, they were having community forums with the lead prosecutor, Andrew Luger, who was the head of the CBE program, to basically have a community buy-in. And a lot of that effort, especially with Al-Bakr's help, Al-Bakr's help, they also had a situation where they brought Luger in. There was a school, there was a charter school at the time called Heritage, where they allowed, again, Andrew Luger, the lead prosecutor, and Average Muhammad, I don't know if any of you have heard of him, search them up. They ended up coming to these schools, again, to basically push this colonial CBE project, to say that, hey, we know that you're struggling with terrorism, and again, to literally target a very vulnerable base of youth. And they had a prosecutor coming to a school where I'm sure a lot of the parents and a lot of kids weren't even aware. And from my understanding at the time, they actually had kids walk out at the time when Andrew Luger and some of these other state agents came in to basically have community buy-in from the youth, especially. And so a lot of what Mama Yan is saying about the CBE project, it was the perfect support system to sort of justify what was being done to these boys. And it wasn't a coincidence that the same week that they were arrested is when they rolled out the program. And so a lot of this is literally something that, I think a lot of people miss, the fine details of, but all of it, it was literally an effort to sort of say, like, hey, what we're doing is justified. You have a problem, we're getting rid of, these 9 young men, three of which are facing, facing 35 years in prison. And a lot of it was because, you have, and again, some of the people right now, I think there's a good time to name drop. Some of the people who are elected officials right now, Holden Hassan, there's a young lady named Fortuna, I believe, who's on the school board in Hopkins. A lot of these people played a huge role in legitimizing Andrew Luger's efforts. As he was literally threatening these young men with life, you had people at his side, like Holden Hassan, who supported him till the end. One of the last meetings I was personally at, it was at a bunker where he came with Holden, and at the time he had a community liaison who also worked with Kendall, named Abdulmalik Hassan. And again, these pieces were important in being able to legitimize what he was doing. And again, it's something that I think when people speak about it, they try to dismiss it and say, hey, it wasn't a huge deal, but when you have a powerful person like Andrew Luger, who's a very powerful political person, who has a lot of, he has a huge social capital, and which, again, I'm not saying that it has anything to do with people like Holden Hassan or even Mahmoud Noor, who's also state representative, who did a lot of work when he was on the school board in allowing the school board to be used to target Somali youth. A lot of these people haven't been able to be held accountable. And I appreciate my own bringing, especially the CVE project, because without the CVE project, you probably don't have these young men facing that many years.
That's a good point. I think all of it, you don't have Entrapment without CVE, and you don't have that with the unjust society of America. You don't have that with, it's all connected, is my point. So I just wanted to remind folks that filled out the surveys and the fundraiser forms, please give that to us or the folks that have the bags that are around, or if you do have them, and you don't see any of us that you can give it to, just bring it down to that table and we will collect them. We appreciate that, thank you so much. And now we're going to move on to the discussion forum section of the evening, and then we'll have 10 minutes, and anybody can come up, go to Muhammad, and have 1 minute to say a comment, a suggestion, whatever you want to share, but we will time you, so you have 1 minute to say what you have to say.
So inshallah, I know there's a lot of people in here who have a lot of questions and a lot of things to say, so it'll be really beneficial if we can all just be really concise, get to our point, and then everybody can have a chance to speak and get out, inshallah. So I'm going to start right here, and then I'll move my way around.
Okay, 1 minute, everybody.
So first of all, I just want to thank everybody who's here to make this happen. And my heart for us parents is unspeakable and unimaginable, of course. I have this is a twofold comment and question I'm trying to condense it in 10 minutes. But the first thing that I first wanted to say was I think it's important first to remember that there is a war that's going on against people and bodies that look like you and I, right? The FBI has something called, I believe it's like identity extremism or like extremism identity. And that when it comes into communities that are non-Muslims, it looks something else, right? When it comes into predominantly Somali Muslim populations, communities, it looks like the CVE, right? And so I think it's important for us to figure out how we can, as communities of color, really figure out how do we support one another, how do we create spaces to have these dialogues. And also for us to be honest about resource sharing, right? Because the support that we all receive, whether it's from the state or whether it's from institutions that are sanctioned by the state, that support looks very differently depending on what they want from you, right? And then I think just a comment to say, I think again, the most important thing that is going to get this community out of this position. You have got to self-advocate, and you've got to be a litigious community, right? So when you go over to North Minneapolis, for example, they are trying to rally their young people to become litigious human beings, right, young people. And so the same has got to happen here, which will then lead into these discussions of resource sharing, because once you are in a litigious community, some of us that are coming from places that we don't know where you're coming from, it makes it easier to access of resource sharing and information sharing so that we can all never hopefully see this happen again.
Thank you. Thank you. That's a great point. Next.
It's cool. I don't think I need the mic. I just wanted to ask, there's only so many newsletters that are able to get around today where we can access them. Like right now, like where we subscribe or something like that.
That's, there wasn't enough.
Asking about Goulad's newsletter from prison.
There's an email on there to receive the newsletters. If you send your email or any email to that email address, prisoneducationsponsorship@gmail.com, that comes to me, and I will just
So it's prison education sponsorship @gmail.com. Prison education sponsorship@gmail.com.
And I'll put you on the list so that as soon as he writes another one, you get them as soon as he's writing them. So if you didn't get a handout, if you can, Farouk and anybody else, you put your email that email, and you'll get on the list.
Short answer would be is because you see some social and political benefit in being able to stand on one side of the issue as opposed to the other. You know, her choosing to side with Andrew Luger and his efforts, you know, that probably got her to where she's at right now. You never know, you know. And it could, at the same time, if you want to look at it, you know, from a perspective like you want to give somebody the benefit of the doubt and say they don't know what they don't know what they were getting themselves into. But in reality, like, we were putting a lot of effort in trying to have the whole community understand that this is very detrimental to us, you know. And so, I mean, that question is better served for her. And she tried to answer that, I think, on her campaign page when she was running for office. She didn't really retreat from it either. You know, she was saying that, hey, oh, you know, people are being killed. That's why I wanted to save the youth. So, but I do think she had political ambitions, and I think a lot of people that were around him definitely had political ambitions. You know, because like I said, he's a very powerful political figure in this state. You know, so.
Can I just add one thing? The young men were sentenced a week after Donald Trump was elected. You have to remember that all of what you might hear about ISIS and all of that, most of that happened after they were in prison. But the jury saw it as if it's happening right now. You understand? In fact, by the way, I should have mentioned this. When they argued that this conspiracy began, and when some of these young men went to Syria, ISIS was not declared a terrorist organization. They weren't declared a terrorist organization until late May 2014, early June. When the United States declared them as a terrorist organization, they revised the State Department's website, retroactively said ISIS has been a terrorist organization since 2004. This is what they do. So when they even declare it an organization, they retroactively, and now everybody and everything connected in any way is now a terrorist. This is when they declared Al-Shabaab a terrorist organization in 2008. But older brother is now a terrorist because he left in 2007 to defend his homeland, right? So this is what happened. Anyway, a lot of the anti-Islamophobia Trump stuff was happening. It was happening in Minnesota, and a lot of politicians were swept up into that.
Donald Trump was elected 1 week before their sentencing. So was Ilhan Omar. The first thing that Ilhan Omar did after she was elected, she wrote a letter to Judge Davis. This is from in my knowledge, the only elected political person who's ever said anything about the largest counterterrorism case in U.S. history. The only person who said anything was Ilhan Omar. The day after she was elected, she sent a letter to Judge Davis saying, please do not put these young men in prison for a long time. You do not have to put them in prison for a long time. Choose restorative justice practices and allow them to be engaged with the community. And that was the only time as far as I know, any politician, local or national, said anything about this case. So I think that was very brave of Ilhan Omar to do that at that time. But as far as I know, nobody else has said anything.
Okay, first, I would wonder what it would be like if the FBI would be as enthusiastic and have the same type of vigor on the attacking white-collar criminals and bankers as they do with these kids. And I want to give you a different perspective of a snapshot of my experience with the FBI. In 2006, I met with a senior special investigative agent of the FBI here in Minneapolis. His name is Richard Ostrom. And I worked for a massive government contractor that's involved in illegal government domestic surveillance. And I provided the FBI with substantial prima facie documented evidence of massive securities fraud and federal criminal and civil rights violations. He opened the investigation, and 3 days later, I was told he had retired. So that's how this worked. This is standard operating procedure. These are psychological operations, and what we all must understand is this country was founded on questioning and challenging our government, and to right injustices and have due process and equal application of the laws. That's not happening. And just again, I want to thank everybody for coming out. I'm doing everything I can from my perspective as a national security whistleblower, but and there will be some information coming out soon with regards to the surveillance. And if I could, just quickly, my son played basketball for Augsburg and had played with a lot of African American kids that grew up in affluent communities. And he told me it pained him to go downtown to Uptown and see the way that these kids that went to Minneapolis Academy and Breck were treated by the police. So I can't imagine what it must be like for you guys.
All right, thank you all for your questions.
Yeah, thank you so much for the questions. We don't have any more time for comments, but of course feel free afterwards to speak and connect with one another. I'm sure our panelists would love to speak with you all, and there are a lot of good organizers in this room, and we have a lot to learn from each other. I want to remind everyone to give those surveys to the volunteers. We've got a couple over here and over there. And we also pass around donation slips for care. We want to keep programming like this going. We want to keep the fight against CBE going, and we want to empower young people to lead this fight and to be educated about their rights and the situation that we're in. And so none of this can happen without your support. And so we're really encouraging everyone in here to donate to care so that we can continue doing programming like this and continue organizing against CBE and standing up for our rights. We also have an online fundraiser, or a link online, which should be in the event page, and a newsletter that we'd love for you all to join. And then we do have just one last thing before everybody leaves, and we'll wrap up, and thank you all for coming.
One more thing. To your point, you said that America was built in, a checks and balances. I I appreciate your comment, but I do want to acknowledge the fact that this land was stolen from indigenous people and it was built by enslaved humans. So in technicality, the only check and balances belong to rich cis white men. So I just wanted to just add that little error. Thank you so much for coming, everybody. I know you guys are heading out, but I really do want to give a big shout out to Claire for organizing this, for Ayan for organizing this, for organizing this, and for our panelists to come out and support and then kind of have this conversation and dialogue with everybody. Have a good night, and we are hosting 2 more of these events, so be on the lookout for that. Thank you. Have a good night.
Thanks everybody for joining us. Nico from Unicorn Riot. I'm going to try to grab a few people for a quick interview. If you stay along with us for a moment.
No, I was like this.
So what I'll do? Yeah. Oh, that's perfect. And you can even like chill, like take a sort of seat if you want. Bring this down a little bit. Bang. Perfect. All right. Here, you can just hold on to this. Yeah, you want to introduce yourself and basically what brought about this event?
Yeah. So my name is Burhan. I'm a community organizer here on the West Bank, mainly. Ayan down here was the one that organized this event to really raise the consciousness of the community and to really give voice to this issue that I think that's been sort of brushed aside, especially when you're talking about the war on terrorism. And the people that's been impacted and the communities that have been impacted. And so we wanted to, and we've been doing this actually, you know, in, on other platforms also. We were part of a young Muslim collective organization that put a similar forum like this together before. And we've been really just trying to push, you know, the community to start rethinking how we're being viewed, you know, and to give voice to people that, you know, that normally are, you know, sort of silenced, you know. So
that was a big thing I heard you saying, is bringing your own narrative.
Yeah.
In the story of Goulet and even the story that we saw in the movie Terror, it seemed like the narrative was controlling the situation. You want to talk about a little bit more about that?
Yeah.
Maybe how it even feels to be on that end.
Right. Again, I think, you know, the biggest part about the biggest battle is against the media, man. I mean, you know, their ability to really communicate these stories to the broader public, you know, to the world, and to make us again to make the public look at us as monsters. You know, and again, you know, once you look at a human being as a monster, man, it's easy to dismiss them. You know what I mean? And so, I think us being able to really be, you know, to have a concerted effort in trying to tell and use, you know, medium that tell these authentic stories about how we're being viewed and how, you know, the whole game is rigged, man. I mean, you know, again, it's not a coincidence that none of the news publications were able to give these young men any opportunity to tell their stories, you know, and so that's part of that conspiracy against, you know, the poor, the defenseless, you know, especially black communities, as we see throughout this country, especially when it comes to violence, you know what I mean, and how we're seen as like enemies of the state. And I think, you know, the one thing we try to emphasize is being able to tell, you know, tell our stories without that, you know, without that type of filter from the state, you know, because obviously, and whether it's NPR, which I think is public, it's a public. They say it's public, and a lot of the other media institutions that tell the same story, man. I don't think it's a coincidence that they were able to tell this war on terror story that again that places us and centers us as the enemies. You know, and so we try to really, and that's how we do these events, man, to really just shift the perspective, you know what I mean, and being able to tell the truth, because that's what it's about.
Yeah. So can you talk about real quick, give our audience maybe what is the West Bank, Minneapolis?
Yeah.
What does it look like? What's it feel like? Do you live here?
Yeah.
What's your experiences here?
Yeah, no. For me, man, it's home, man. I grew up here. I went to the U of M here. You know, I just found a job recently within the neighborhood, so you know, it means a lot, man. And I think it has such a history within the city, you know, and within the state, of being a predominantly immigrant neighborhood for generations, I think. And now in the last 20 years, it's really been occupied by people of East African descent. Oromos, Somalis, you know, you have East Asians that live here also, and folks from Latin America. And so you have a very diverse community of people that, you know, that really speak to, you know, our journey as immigrants in this country, you know.
Yeah, and then so I heard a little bit about, we heard when the counterterrorism sort of started in Minneapolis.
Yeah.
And it was sort of centered around Somalia.
Right.
Can you talk about maybe how the Al-Shabaab cases and then the ISIS cases have impacted these communities?
Right.
Between the entrapments by the FBI or even the charging of folks.
Right, man. The one thing it effectively did was divide the community, man. I mean, you had people that started to look at themselves as members of the community, as like almost like this self-hate, you know, peering through this self-hate glass almost, you know, like, oh, why are we doing this to ourselves? You know, why are you doing this? Why are they leaving the country to do this? And, you know, I remember the first time I was ever interviewed about the Al-Shabaab case, I was like 19, man, 08, 09. And I said the same sort of thing, which was, man, hey, look, man, why would they leave this opportunity in America? You know, why would they do this? And as you become politically conscious, man, you understand that, you know, whatever took those men down there wasn't some situation where they were brainwashed or like, you know what I mean, or this. They were genuinely concerned about what was going on in these parts of the world. It was for them, it was a political decision. It wasn't a religious decision as the feds like to play it. You know what I mean, or this extremism, and you know, try to wrap it up as if it's some sort of like. Something where, you know, you were basically manipulated. You know, it was a decision that some guys made to take part in something, and what that did to the community was, because of the effort within the feds to basically place informants, and to be honest with you, man, you know, and this film was obviously about an informant within the community, man. You had people being tailgated, you know, and being washed for over 25 years. To this day, there's some guys that are being washed. You know what I mean? And so. And, you know, that really just builds so much insecurity to where you're not able to speak up. You're not able to really be part of the community. And so they isolate you and they divide the community in such a way that you don't trust each other no more. You know what I mean? And so, and that's what the Al-Shabaab situation did. And this is what the ISIS situation did too. It effectively divided the community to where you have people siding with the feds. You know, and working with the feds, because you're put in such a vulnerable situation. You know what I mean?
And that dismantling of trust within the community, even the parents, they then don't trust even the mosque or something.
Yeah.
So, can you just elaborate real quick on the importance of community in America for folks who aren't from America?
Yeah, man, community is a huge part, man. You know what I mean? I don't care where you're from, Latin America, Africa, the Middle East. A lot of the ways that we're able to exist is because of our community. We're communal people, you know what I mean? And so once you sort of like place this distrust within the community, man, that effectively just destroys every relationship almost, you know what I mean? Where you know, even some of the parents here today, they've lost so many relationships. They've been cut off. You know what I mean? People have shunned them because of what they're going through. You know what I mean? And again, it's because you're dealing with this powerful institution, you know, this empire that has all the means to destroy people. You know what I mean? And again, when you destroy what is the most valuable thing to a people, which is community, then man, shit, it's over. You know what I mean? Like there's nothing else you can do, and that's why those boys are rotting away in prison because we can't protect them. You know what I mean?
Okay. So maybe the last question. I want you to. The last one is to speak whatever you want to say.
Yeah.
This one, real quick, is what can people do at home watching, support, maybe even to support Gulag, support some of these other young sons, or even just the community in general?
Right. Man, the best way to really support these community, I mean, especially the people who are impacted, is to reach out. You know what I mean? And to really make yourself known as an individual, as a community, as a member of an organization, as somebody who has some sort of real social currency, to come out and reach out. You know what I mean? And really listen to these families and what they're going through. So that's you know, I would say really make it personal. You know what I mean? And being able to tell these stories. And you know, and the best way to really do is take part in some community event where you center these stories and justice, especially within our criminal justice system, that, you know, they will continue destroying people. You know what I mean? And it's not this idea that we'll just penetrate and infiltrate these institutions so I can be a lawyer, so I can be a judge. None of that really helps, man. Like you know, I think one of the people that spoke, this shit is purely ideological. If your ideological system is set up to where you side with this empire, then you're gonna see us as enemies. You're gonna see us as thugs and terrorists, because you see these systems as doing no wrong, and that they're basically our savior. You know what I mean? And I think being able to challenge the political and ideological structure of the United States is a huge, and being able to really like understand that and become politically literate. You know what I mean? Because you just can't do stuff without having a political foundation. And I think that's what we try to really push the people, is to have a real political foundation, which again sides with the oppressed, which uplifts the voices of the oppressed. And those young men in prison are the oppressed. You know what I mean? And they were put there by the enemy of all mankind, like, you know, George Jackson used to say. You know, and so that's something that I think people need to really be able to educate themselves. And that's the best way you can do it, man. Educate yourself and reach out, be involved. You know. So.
Anything else you want to say?
Man, that was about it. Yeah, I wrapped it in. So. Yeah, man, I appreciate y'all, man.
Appreciate you, man.
Sure, baby.
Much love. Let you get back to doing your thing.
Yeah.
Thank you, man. Appreciate it.
Thank you all for joining us. Nico from Unicorn Riot. Real quick, jump my face on the screen. Just want to touch real quick. Another past story that had happened was what he was saying exactly. It was a youth that I was working back in the day in 2008. One of the older brothers in the family went back to Somalia. The family then gets shunned by the feds, and they had to move, change their name, all these things. Very impactful situations here in Minneapolis. Thank you all for joining us. Nico from Unicorn Riot. Back here behind me, we're in Wiley Hall. This was a screening for the movie Terror, which is about the FBI entrapment. And then it was a panel discussion, and the panel discussion was multiple mothers of multiple sons that are now locked up in prison, entrapped by the FBI, they say, and doing time for terrorist charges. So, again, thank you all for joining. We only are able to do this with your help. We got $3 micro donations for monthly donations. Those help a ton. Thank you all so much for anybody who supported in the past or even now. Beyond that, go to unicornriot.ninja. Check out more of our media. We have a lot of media coming up soon. We have some pieces on Rojava. We have some pieces on Greece. We have some other Discord leaks. We have a lot of things going on. So check it all out at unicornriot.ninja. Thank you again, and have a great night, everybody. Peace.